Hello, welcome to this week's Mod Journal panel discussion. I am Brittany King, your host and moderator. Today we'll be discussing the 2016 election, feminism, radical optimism, and racism, and how they all have played a part in this presidential race. On today's panel, we have Tony Hayden, Rebecca Pacey, Desiree Conrad, and Emma Simple. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, today we'll be discussing the 2016 election, racism and feminism, and how it's played a part in this year's race. So, who are you guys going to vote for and why?
Well, I'm voting for Bernie Sanders because he's the only legitimate candidate I've seen for many years that I feel like he has everything I've ever said in a person, and he's been fighting for 40-something years, and I think Democrats, that's why I'm no longer a Democrat, because he's been fighting and saying the same things for years, and they kind of push him to the side as a fringe candidate. Oh, he'll never, he's this old crazy old man yelling about equality and all kinds of stuff. And I just went back to my research, and I was like, everything I want in a politician is him, and so I backed him 100%. So that's me.
I'm voting for Bernie as well. I voted for him in the primary and will continue to back him as far as he can possibly make it, I suppose. Basically, the reason why I'm voting for him is very similar to what he said. I believe that he is standing for what our generation wants to see our country turn into versus the status quo of what it's been for so long. And I also believe that if you can look at somebody's record and see that they are backing what they say they're backing versus just talking to you to make you believe them so you'll vote for them, I can get behind that.
I'm also voting for Bernie. I just think that he sees what we should have. So there's no reason why, as one of the most powerful countries in the world, that our citizens should have such a low quality of life. I mean, we should have basic things available to us, in healthcare and education and just general human rights across the board. And as they mentioned, that's something that he's been fighting for his entire life and career, and I absolutely stand behind it.
I also voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary because I like the idea of having a moral leader. Like, I think we're given the choices of different kinds of leaders, and I like the idea of not having someone who kind of tests the crowd and says, oh, what do they want, and then tries to hustle themselves in front of the crowd, because that'll change and that'll shift, right? I like the idea of someone who has remained consistent throughout their entire life and has always stood up for what they believe in and what they believe in being the same thing. So I really am a huge fan of consistency. I'm also definitely not Bernie or bust. I will vote for Hillary Clinton if it comes down to Hillary or Trump.
So how do you guys overall feel about the election? Any of all of you can answer this, but overall, how do you feel about how things have gone?
Well, I feel it's a charade from the beginning, because I feel it's always been Hillary Clinton. That's who they wanted. And I think Donald Trump is nothing but a plant, and just to he says the worst thing, so it makes her look, well, she's lesser evil. And I seen it from the beginning, and I just, because I feel, why would Donald Trump come out and say, why would he destroy his name, his business name, and come out and say these things that are so irrational, and you wouldn't say if you tried to become president. And so I thought, okay, this is very suspicious. And so I've never really believed him, so I don't really pay a lot of attention to him, because I think this is all a circus. But I think the focus has always been on her. They want her in, she's the next puppet, and she's going to do whatever she can to get in that power, because she's power hungry and undesirable person. So that's all I gotta say on that.
I actually think that I'm probably more grateful for this election cycle than I have been for any other, because our country has been very corrupt and very wrong in a lot of ways for a very long time, but it's always just under the surface. So I think that this election cycle has brought out the worst in us. As a country, as people, as a political system, as a leader, everything is become very public, not only within ourselves, but around the entire world. And I think that when you have a long-standing history of corruption since the beginning of this country, then it takes something huge to change that. And so I think that this is the beginning of a very big revolution in our people. So regardless of whether like Bernie wins or Hillary or even Trump, I think that this is the beginning of really setting our people on fire to not accept the things that we've been accepting for a very long time.
So can each of you describe each candidate with one word, Trump, Bernie, and Hillary? So we're going to start with Tony. So describe Hillary with one word.
Correct.
Hillary, I would say liar.
Strategic.
That's a good one. I can't do
That's
it
a
in
good
one word.
I understand.
That's the problem.
Well, we'll move on to an easier one, Trump. Describe Trump with
Fake.
one word.
Buffoon.
Pawn.
Unhinged.
So describe Bernie with one word.
Passionate.
I would say steward.
Hope.
Authentic.
And first off, I want to start with racism. So arguably, the main reason why racism has been incited in this election is with Donald Trump. And there's been a number of fights at various Trump rallies, for example, in Chicago and Louisville, due to Trump's hate speech. He called Latinos rapists, murderers, alleging that black protesters are thugs, and even attacking women such as Megyn Kelly and Carly Fiorina. He constantly mentions building a wall in every speech to keep immigrants out and calling on a ban on Muslims. Most recently, he caused some controversy with using the Orlando shooting at Pulse nightclub to add to his anti-Muslim narrative of Islamic terror, calling the shooter Afghan and saying if they had stronger immigration laws, that this shooting would have never happened, even though the shooter was born and raised in New York. And also, KKK leader David Duke and Korean dictator Kim Jong-un has endorsed Trump's methods. So, has this election, with the help of Trump's campaign, shown how prevalent racism is in America?
And I just think why I think Donald Trump is fake, and because I just think he was just a tool to bring that over the edge. So it was a contrast to Hillary to say, oh, she's the lesser two evil. She's not a racist. She's not this. She's not that. Look at Donald Trump. Don't vote for him. Liberals, minorities. He's totally against you. And I think people are frustrated. I don't know if it's so much a racism. I think it's more the people that go to his rallies. I think it's more a frustration like everybody else because, they can't find jobs. They feel like their country's falling apart. I can see both sides of the argument. I try to look at both sides. I think a lot of it's just misplaced frustration.
I think if we're going to talk about racism in politics, that we need to talk about the fact that when the young black woman that came to protests for Hillary's speech came up, that Hillary completely disregarded her and treated her horribly, and Hillary talked over her, refused to acknowledge her. That's just as much racism as anything going on at Trump's rallies. People of color, I can't speak for a person of color, but I can say that they already know that there's racism in this country. I don't think it revealed anything to them. So if we're asking, did it reveal to white people, maybe white middle class people, the racism going on? Maybe, but at the same time, we need to look at progressive liberals and old school liberalism in general and how that's racist and that's oppressing people just as much as whatever Trump's spewing out of his mouth.
Well, I think that in what you're saying, there's no difference between the racism experienced at like a Trump rally or like a Hillary rally. Would you rather, as a person of color, be pandered to or called a thug. I mean, there's really absolutely no difference at all. If you're willing to completely ignore somebody 1 minute, pander to them the next, you don't care what that person's struggle is. You don't care. Just as much as the person over here throwing racial slurs does not care. Neither person cares about people of color's struggles in our country, and that's across the board. What this election cycle has done is it's allowed more unaware white people to become a little more aware that this is still very deep-seated in our country. White people have the habit of that racism doesn't exist anymore. Everybody has civil rights. Racism isn't a thing that's in your head. You make your own opportunities.
That was 30 years ago. This is
Right.
now.
White people say this
Not a
stuff
lot.
all the time. So this has really brought it in the forefront and said, look, this is happening. Look at what your people are doing. And it's not just look how white people are treating black people anymore. It's look how this class of people, the people that hold all the power in this country, are treating blacks and Latinos and Muslims and literally anybody that's not a white middle class man, really. So it's forced people to actually acknowledge that it's still here.
I think that I've definitely become a lot more aware of people who hold racist beliefs around me because I have this Stop the Hate Trump shirt that I wear that has like Trump with the circle in it, and people will talk with me about it, and like people that I am friends with and that I care about, and they'll be like, so you're not voting for Trump? And I'm like, of course I'm not. You know what I mean? Like, let's chat about this. So for me, it has definitely made me aware of several people in my life that hold opinions that I think are vastly different than my own, which I would have never talked with them about if not for this very bizarre election cycle.
So overall, are you guys shocked by how many people has, supported Trump?
Yes.
Are you shocked by that?
Absolutely. I'm very into politics, and a couple of my friends during the beginning of the primary season talked with me about it because they were concerned about Trump. And I literally said the words, don't worry, he won't make it. Like, there's no way that he'll be the nominee. Definitely had to eat those words, but I would have never in a million years imagined that he would be this popular. Like, this really blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just goes back to misplaced frustration. I just think people don't know how to vent. And I think racism has never gone away. It's been under the surface. We know as black people, it's never gone away. It's been under the surface. It's the subtle, racism now, not the blatant racism. Now it's just coming into the forefront. It's always been there. It's just now, I think since some white people put it in the back of their minds, like, oh, that doesn't happen anymore, or they're equal, but it still happens. They just choose to see it or not.
I'm actually not shocked at all. Look at the entire history of our country. What happens when the rich and the powerful are raping us as a country? They say, hey, poor white people, it's the poor brown people's fault. Blame them. So regardless of whether it's African Americans or Latinos or Muslims, it doesn't matter. It's, hey, you guys are all the same, but we don't want your attention on us. We don't want you banding together against us. So fight amongst yourselves. So it really honestly does not shock me that he's become so popular.
I have to agree too. I don't necessarily feel shocked that he is popular for a lot of the same reasons, and also because I feel like at the very least Trump represents just as much disenchantment with the status quo of what's going on as Bernie. It's just completely polarized. So in a way, I empathize more with Trump supporters than I do with Hillary supporters, because at least they're also like, this is messed up, like this can't go on like this. But I will say that I had this denial of, yeah, there are lots of Trump supporters, but those are other people somewhere else. And then the signs started popping up and I was like, oh my God, like this is real right now. These aren't just mythological people out in the world. These are my next door neighbors. These are people in my community. And it got a lot more scary after that for me, I think.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that he should be pulled from the race by his narrative? People have, compared him to Hitler. So do you think he should be pulled, or is it just our responsibility to vote and overthrow him?
No, absolutely, he has the right to say whatever he wants to say. We live in America. We might not like it, but that's a slippery slope when you start saying you can't say certain things. Because I love America and I love our freedoms, stuff like that. And he's entitled to say what he wants to say. Now, I'm entitled to protest that, but I can't say to him, you better not. That's why I never agreed with the rioting and like breaking police cars, and that's not going to solve anything. It's only going to bolster his people to come out more, because they see all these crazy minorities busting out windows and for instance, the Hispanics with the Mexican flags and burning the American flags, and that's not going to help the issue. I just wish people would understand that. You can protest all day long, but it has to be peaceful, because he's doing it for a reason. He's trying to get these people to look a certain way, and sometimes I think they are playing into it. If they were peacefully protesting, I think it would be less dramatic, you'd get less attention. But every time I see the news where people are jumping on cars and he's saying, look at these thugs, look at these, they're coming out and interrupting. Everybody has a right to go. Trump people want to go to his rally, they're more than welcome, and nobody should stop them from doing that. I don't like to see the violence. I don't like to see Trump supporters getting attacked. I mean, that's just not going to solve anything. It's only going to make him stronger, and I wish people would understand that.
I think that while he has the right to say whatever he wants, because that's a freedom that we all have, I don't think that he should be running for the President of the United States. Whoever is the President of the United States is a world leader. And is that what the United States as a collective wants to be represented of as in the whole world? Like, it's not just, well, that's a Trump supporter and I'm a Bernie supporter and I don't like what they say and they don't like what I say. But as a collective, this is how we're being portrayed to the entire world. So any successes that we've had diplomatically around the world, are we willing to sacrifice those?
He's a joke in Europe. People look at America like, are you serious?
Which means we're a joke.
Exactly, and they see us as a joke, and they see us as racist, what the world's always seen us as, and it's only making it worse now. So it's just like...
We're seen as weak and racist and dumb and antiquated, and that's not the way we want to be seen throughout the whole world. That's not what we need.
Can I ask you a question? Yeah. Okay, so you were talking about how you don't think that violence is the answer and that peaceful protesting is what needs to happen for change to occur. Well, in our country, we've consistently seen that peaceful protesting gets shut down and turns violent and escalates really quickly. So what do you feel like is the solution to that? At what point are people, like, how much can they take before it's like...
I honestly think you can peacefully protest. Because I've seen it I've watched, and it's just, I could say that if people weren't jumping on cars and like burning flags and all these kind of things, and I just have issue with that. Like, I'm all for protesting, and I'm all for that. But we're only looking like what they're saying we are. They say that liberals are just leftist, they're fight or kill, whatever, to get their opinion across, and they're always attacking conservatives, and they don't let conservatives speak, and just playing in. I watch Fox News, I watch all the news, but when I watch Fox News, they repeatedly say, well, look at the liberals, they won't even let you speak because they're violent, and we can't be portrayed like that. That's the narrative that they're playing with, and they're telling these people that are watching Fox, well, look at these people, they can't even peacefully protest because they're attacking Trump supporters and throwing eggs and hitting people in the back of the head when they're walking out of places and stuff. That is not going to solve anything. It's only making them stronger, and I wish other people would understand that. You go protest. Yes, I understand it's not a perfect system, but I feel like if there was enough organization, people are like, okay, don't take it to the next level, guys. I don't care what they say to you. I don't care. Just keep it peaceful, and we look better out of it, but you can't make an argument when you're jumping on cars or attacking people violently. You just look crazy, and you look like unhinged or not mature, and I just don't think it's a good thing.
But at what point is the media going to make you look like that versus what's actually going on?
Well, yes, I know the media slides things, but visually with a camera, they can only point to something and it's happening, So that's what, I'm not saying that they don't skew things to fit their agenda. I know they do, but if you weren't jumping in the car, they have nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
That's my
I
opinion.
agree with that. I feel like there's so many class dynamics going on, and the people that are doing that are generally the most disenfranchised, the least educated, and that does come into play of like not having a release for your anger. And that goes back to what we were saying about Trump supporters as well. If they're looking for a release for their anger, and a lot of times that goes back to racism and violence against marginalized people. And so it's like, can we condemn the marginalized people for having enough, and because of the place that they are in life and the education and all of that, taking this route versus the people who are on the other side who take that route as well? I don't know.
So I think there's a difference between like criticizing someone for the way that they vent their anger and like encouraging a specific way of protest. Like, I personally think that you cannot protest hate with violence, like, because violence is a form of hate, so that's just completely illogical. But if I see someone who's protesting and they're jumping on a car, whatever, they're yelling, they're setting things on fire, I'm not going to be like, look at that idiot. I'm going to be like, things are really bad. You know what I mean? Like, so I would not condemn those people, but that do protest violently. But you have to acknowledge that that's not going to bring about the change that we want.
You see, and I feel differently than you guys about that, because I think that while I do believe in peaceful protest, and I do, I think that that can get us a foot in the door to be able to speak to each other. But we're not fighting amongst each other. We are, but we shouldn't be. Revolution is never peaceful, ever. So like Trump supporters and Bernie supporters, they are, but they have the same cares, and they just think that the path to get to where we want to go is different. So our problems and where we want to be is the same. The paths are different. And I think that the protest can help open dialogue between those two groups eventually. This is not an overnight problem, and it's not going to be an overnight solution. So once those two groups of people start talking and saying, what do we want? Let's talk about how we get there. There will come a point in our country where this revolution turns big and it turns violent. And I'm not talking in small arenas. So we're not talking about at rallies and on streets and at election centers. And I'm talking big. Do you think these people are going down without a physical fight, without violence, without us saying no more? They're not. So while I agree peaceful protest is a great way to open dialogue, to combine forces, there is no way that a revolution can be nonviolent. There's no way.
In the beginning, it has to be peaceful. Now, what happens afterwards, I can't help, but I hope nothing bad like that happens, but I understand if it does.
So how do you, and I agree, which is what I'm saying, like, I think that the peaceful protest will help us communicate amongst each other, but how do you expect to go to a governor's office and say, you need to leave?
Well, you need to vote him out of
Right,
office.
so, which is gonna take a long time of us being able to figure it out amongst ourselves, because if we're always so divided, it's never gonna get there. It's never gonna get there.
Staying with the issue on racism, I know you guys actually mentioned that Trump isn't the only candidate that's incited racism, that Hillary has as well. So some examples of this is people are calling her racist or prejudiced or being a panderer. She's been accused of patronizing Latinos, using Spanish when greeting them. She was quoted in an interview telling Hispanics to think of her as their abuela, which means grandmother. And she received negative backlash with the hashtag #NotMyAbuela, which was created in retaliation to Hillary. Also on a popular radio show called The Breakfast Club, which is predominantly urban and black, Hillary was asked by the radio host just a generic question, what do you carry in your purse? And she said hot sauce, which upset a lot of people because they called that racist and stereotypical to answer with hot sauce on an urban radio show whose audience is mainly black. So Do you believe she's prejudiced, racist, a panderer, or do you don't think she's any of these?
Hillary Clinton is a racist, and she always has been. The Clintons have always been a racist. Bills was a racist. I mean, from Arkansas, for God's sake. So, I mean, not saying everyone in Arkansas is racist, but I mean, they have a history of racial issues, and he was a governor of Arkansas. And I think it's always been, and that's why I never understood the black community. I was like, why are you guys so behind the Clintons? I'll never understand. That's why I've talked to my dad and people I was voting for her. And I'm like, what is it? My dad literally said, because Bill's going to be there. I was like, you're voting based on Bill Clinton and not Hillary? It's so obvious to me that she's such a racist, and she just panders when she goes to black churches and dancing around and singing and only shows up there during elections. I don't see her any other time going to these places, or going to, she was in Compton going to chicken and waffles. I mean, there's so many things that I have so many issues with this woman. And then the way protesters of color have come up to her and she's dismissed them, and it's so obvious to see, and she gets a pass. I don't know why. I'm so perplexed.
So I don't think that Hillary is any more racist than any. Let me not say that. I don't think that Hillary is any more racist than average. I think she's an opportunist, the best opportunist. And I absolutely think, to what you were saying, that there is a huge portion of people that are voting for her based on the Clinton legacy. People tend to look at that as a whole and say, well, and one of the things that I think is happening, especially with black families around the country, is they're saying, well, jobs were good then, and they were. You could find a job at any time, anywhere, no matter who you were, which then was much better than what black families were used to before the Clinton years. But then we don't stop to think about, well, how damaging was the Clinton years to black families?
Oh, goodness.
How damaging were the crime laws and the crime bills to black families? So we're not talking about those things because we still would rather place the blame on young black men than to say these laws are unjust, these laws are unfair, and we're incriminating an entire race of young men, instead of saying these are the problems.
You are supposed to be progressive liberal and you're saying that?
Right.
There's something wrong with that, because you're not one. You're actually a moderate conservative, but that's a different discussion.
So staying on the topic of Hillary, we'll move to feminism. So I read this article on Quartz.com. A 25-year-old woman named Gemma Soldaidi, a comedian and a feminist. She refused to vote for Hillary Clinton, and when challenged why she wouldn't vote for a female candidate, she responds with, "Did I miss the part where resistance got refused with idealism, where practicality trumps values, and where identity politics outweigh revolutionary ideas?" The article then went on to say that she's a part of a generation of liberal women who do not see Clinton as their candidate and who say that they will vote for a woman, but when the right one comes along. A well-known journalist named Gloria Steinem said that the only reason why younger women are voting for Bernie is because, and I quote, that they just want to meet boys and all the boys are voting for Sanders. And she also said that there's a special place in hell for women who do not help other women. So, with that said, is it anti-feminist not to support Hillary and make her the first female president?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. It's anti-feminist to tell a woman what she has to do. So it's anti-feminist to say you have to vote for this person just because she's a woman. Like, that's the whole idea of feminism, is that I get to choose for myself. I get to make whatever decision I want to for what's best for me in my life. That's what feminism is.
It's really embarrassing because Gloria Steinem has a book in where she details kind of like her life up until then. And she has a whole section about the campaign that she was running or helping to run in the 60s. And she's like talking about the same stuff that she's telling people now, that people were treating her like she couldn't possibly understand like politics and why she was voting for this person and the campaign and yada yada yada. And now she's like doing the exact same thing to younger women. It's really perplexing where she's even getting this from.
I have a hard time calling Hillary Clinton a feminist when she's taking money from Saudi Arabia that kills women, homosexuals. Is she just feminist for American white women? I think it's a disservice to women actually to say, well, you can lie and cheat and steal like a man.
That's not what I said.
You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, for women to, like, you can lie to like a man to become president of the United States. You don't have to do those things as a woman. I think women have progressed in this country to a point that is well beyond, you know, the fighters of the 20s for women's rights and votes. And I think, I mean, it can get totally better, and I think that there's a lot of things to work on, especially for women of color, too. I won't vote for her because, like I said, she's an opportunist, in my opinion.
Okay, so what I will say is that I think it is complex because, like you referenced, the suffragettes in the 20s. Well, those women, pardon my language, did not give a shit about people of color. They did not care about poor people. And so what I'm trying to say is not so much like, oh, she's acted like a man, so she deserves whatever. What I'm saying is, for her, in her head, she might think that she is a feminist in the way that white, middle class, and rich feminists think they are feminists. That is not my feminism, and that's certainly not women of color's feminism.
I won't vote for Hillary. And the reason why is because I feel like voting for her is with a forced hand. I feel like democracy and my right to vote should mean that it's my right to vote for who I think is qualified to be our president. And I feel like that this entire election cycle has been forcing people's hands between, you know, Trump being on the opposite side of the ticket to, you know, the heavily swayed media coverage, election fraud. So there's so many things that have gone on that I feel like are forcing America's hands to vote for her, and I'm unwilling to do it. So I would rather say, you know, you do what you want with your vote, but part of my right as a citizen is to vote or to not vote. And I'm not gonna support somebody because you tell me I have to. I don't have to, and I won't. So if Bernie does not get the nomination, you know, at this point, I don't know whether I will just not vote or whether I will vote for Jill Stein. I don't know, but I won't vote for Hillary.
So we're going to transition into this idea of radical optimism, basically talking about Bernie, his campaign. Do you think he is too radical? For example, do you think him wanting to make minimum wage $15 an hour, do you think that's realistic? Do you think that's a good idea?
$15 minimum wage is a good idea, and I think it's realistic for some areas. I think it's a great jump off point. I think it's a great way to get people talking about raising our wages across the country. Do I think $15 is realistic in every town across the country? No. But I think that there's no reason why in the bigger cities that have a extremely high cost of living that the wage shouldn't reflect that. We're afraid to look out, but there's lots of models around the world that are doing it successfully. And I think that we should not be setting, as one of the most powerful countries in the world, we shouldn't be sitting here looking at all these other countries and be like, yeah, they're doing it really good, but it's not for us. It's not for our citizens. It's not for us. We can't do that. We can't. Well, why can't we? It's a good thing to be so optimistic, and it takes that kind of extreme optimism to make any change, because if you're just then nothing will ever change. If you're not passionate and dreaming big, then nothing is going to change at all.
FDR was, to my opinion, one of the best presidents, but Bernie shares that opinion because he was a socialist and he created social programs that saved this country. I think socialism works, and it has worked. I mean, it's been working in this country since the programs existed. And to say that we're not a socialist country is absurd, because we are. It's half and half. I think capitalism and socialism can work together. as a hybrid government. I don't think one extreme or the other should be. I think now we're in an extreme on capitalism, crony capitalism, where people just literally want money over people's needs. It's profit over people. And I think it's hit the extreme, and we need to go back to the middle.
So what's your thoughts on his stance that college should be free? Do you think that is also too radical, or is that something that needs to happen? There's some sources and some people think that it's unrealistic because they say it will take the competition out of the job market since anyone can get a college degree, and also that there needs to be a certain cutoff of who gets free tuition, that not everyone needs it, but where do you cut that off? So what's your thoughts on that?
I don't see where a market that only allows rich people to go to college is competitive. Like, that's insane to me. There's talent across the board, and some people don't ever get the opportunity to go to college because they don't have the money for it. I mean, students who graduate with just a 4-year degree, and by the way, you can't do anything with less than a 4-year degree. You can barely do things with a 4-year degree, are $30, $40, $50, $60,000 in debt. Your education should not be privatized. So why aren't we thinking of this as a country? We want our people to be educated so we can lead the world in science and math and
Liberal arts.
Thank you, yes, everything. So why aren't we saying we want our people to be well educated so there is a more competitive market, so they are thinking harder and developing more and inventing things, and so we can be more competitive in a global market, which is what we are. So why wouldn't we want our people to be very well educated and help move us forward in a global market? It doesn't make sense to me.
Capitalism.
Thank you. Yes,
So-
it's true.
So, I mean, it's simple. It's just these people that have the money, they don't want to see other people get money. It's the 1% that want to have all the money. They don't want the 99% get an education so they can possibly get money like them. That takes money from them. Yes, education is a social program. It's not there to make money. I think that's why people in India, that's why you see people here in Columbus and stuff, they drive around BMWs, and people here are driving around busted, ratty cars because our government says, well, you have to pay for it, sorry. In other countries, their priority is education. That's why they come over here to get good jobs.
So there's been some talk about Bernie's age. Do you guys think that he's too old to be president?
That's so
They're all old.
ageist.
I mean,
So thank you.
they're all old. What do you mean?
He's too old.
That's
Like
so
Hillary's too
ageist.
woman, and Trump is too what? Like
That is so
nobody is
ageist.
two to do anything that they feel
Exactly.
capable of doing. Like, he's clearly a very capable person. So what does his age have to do with anything?
You know what his age has to do with? Him having years and years of experience.
Exactly.
Like, why would you not want that?
You know what's funny is that his following is the youngest following. So clearly it's not an issue except with middle-aged people.
So Hillary supporters are very nasty people. What's the ones I've met?
Generalizing.
Yes, at least the ones I've met. Okay, not saying all, but a lot of them I've met, I guess the more aggressive, outspoken, like the Bernie supporters that come, we fight each other, is, trust me, it gets complicated sometimes. But I see that. They say, oh, that crazy old man, he's been in Congress, he hasn't done anything for 40 years. He doesn't have experience like Hillary does, and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, all you have to do is Google. I mean, you can always see what he's done.
So why do you guys think that the younger generation supports Bernie?
They're ready for an America that serves them. They're ready for a country that serves them back. So I think our parents' age are, how can I serve my country? And then as citizens, we give and give and give and give and give to our country and get nothing in return. And I think that it's okay to say, I expect a return on my investment. I think that our generation is not blindly believing the propaganda that were provided, saying you have to selflessly give to your country. Well, this should be a marriage. I should give to you and you should give to me. What kind of return am I getting on my investment to this country?
So there's been talks and there's been polls that say that Bernie will not win against Hillary. But there has been discussions that he might run as an independent if she does win the Democratic nominee. So do you think supporters of Bernie are wasting their vote if they vote for him over Hillary? Or do you think Sanders should drop out of the race and just encourage his supporters to vote for Hillary?
If Bernie Sanders runs as an independent and Hillary Clinton runs as a Democrat, Trump will win, because that will split the liberal vote. It's kind of like what happened, was that 2000 with Ralph Nader?
Mhm.
Yeah, except Bernie Sanders is a whole lot more popular than Ralph Nader. So if he runs as an independent, Trump will win.
I'm not even mad at that scenario. I'm not a Trump supporter at all. I think he's ridiculous, but I don't think that any of our votes are wasted.
Right.
I think that that our voting system is horrible, but at the end of the day, it's my vote, and I cast it how I want, and you're not going to force my hand to vote for somebody I don't want. So if I vote my heart and how I think, and I vote honestly for myself, if the country still elects somebody like Trump, then that's what we deserve. I mean, it's horrible. I agree, like, it's horrible, but you're not going to force my hand on my vote, and nobody's vote is wasted. It's my voice, it's your voice, it's not wasted.
I'm like this. If I'm Bernie or bust, I don't care about the Democratic Party. They can choose to do what they want to do. If their actions have pushed me to this limit. They pushed tons of Bernie supporters to this limit. The corruption, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the corrupt person at the DNC that's been hedging for Hillary since the beginning, and the fact that she had 400 delegates even before Bernie even announced, it's kind of crazy. And I'm not voting for Hillary. I mean, you could probably put a gun to my head, and I still probably wouldn't vote for her, probably. I will not be pressured into or told by the media or by Hillary supporters or by anybody to say, well, Trump's going to be in there, so you better vote Hillary. I mean, if you don't want him, you better vote for her. I was like, I'm just not interested in that. Let him come. Let him F things up, because, that is your problem. I'm going to stay to my morals and vote for her I want to vote for. And if that upsets people, I don't know what to tell them, because it's my vote.
I would hope that if he does not win the nomination, that he does run on an independent ticket, regardless of whether to split the vote or not, because I think it's a big difference between the Nader. He has such a huge following and so many people, and I'll be honest, I will be surprised if it comes down to Hillary and Trump, and they allow Trump to win the presidency. The people in charge who pull the strings for this entire country, they don't want him to win. He's a plant.
Exactly.
So I will be, so even if the Democratic ticket is split, then I have a hard time believing that something isn't going to happen that causes Hillary to still win. She is not going to take another loss. She's not going to do it. But I think that also is why, like, the Republican Party had such a ridiculous ticket this year. Like, there was nobody qualified on there. There was nobody that could.
Ben Carson.
That's just
I am
Also,
kidding.
like, what does it mean if Bernie supporters, who the whole reason that they're supporting Bernie is because of their moral views and wanting to see change, just go and drop it all and vote for Hillary? What is that saying?
Exactly.
We're as just as big as sellouts as she is.
Right.
So that's not even an option. And I know for a lot of Bernie supporters, it literally is not even an option. And I think you guys are right as far as the responsibility does not lie on us if stuff goes south, because we're trying to make a change. But I think ultimately as well, regardless of what happens, it's showing that people are done and we want something different. Even if Bernie doesn't make it, look how many people backed him. And I think that millennials have proved that as a generation, all the BS that people say about how we don't care about anything, we don't care about politics, all we care about is ourselves, and we need instant gratification for everything. Well, clearly we're fighting hard for something that is not giving us instant gratification.
Already at this point.
It's a revolution. I don't think that what the establishment understands is that, okay, Bernie Sanders doesn't get the nomination. We're not going to go away. We're still going to be there, and we're still going to be pushing candidates, even in local races, state level, to change things. This is ultimately, I think, in the part of my mind, Bernie Sanders knew that he probably wouldn't win. But it was about the message and him pushing the agenda of social change. And he wanted the people to come out and say, I'm tired of this. And get more people involved in politics and say, well, I can run for office and see what I can do about it. Like, it's getting people involved in the government and not letting certain people continue decade after decade getting in the same positions. And his message has worked. He's been successful. Even if he doesn't win, he's been successful in getting over 11 million people to support him. And the fact is, we're not going anywhere. We're going to Philadelphia. We're going to protest. We're going to say, well, this system is corrupt. The Democrats are corrupt. Hillary is certainly corrupt. And we want nothing. We want nothing a part of that. We don't want nothing to do with that.
So who do you guys honestly feel will be the next president, the 45th president? Not who that you want, but that you really realistically think
Hillary.
will.
Hillary.
So if you could ask either candidate a question, what would it be? And who would you ask?
I would want to ask Trump what his goal was in running. Because, this may seem funny, but in the back of my mind, I feel like he may have done this just as a publicity stunt. And I so badly want to know, were you trying to be president when you started this whole thing? I would really, really love to know that.
So moving on to some final thoughts over this discussion. So did any of you have any aha moments, any moments of enlightenment from any of the panelists, what they said or what was discussed?
Well, I did over bringing up over and over the voting up for the lesser of two evils, which I have been known to do, and I will probably continue doing that. And I've honestly never heard it spoken of in such a negative manner before. So I'm really going to have to think about whether I want to be part of something that I don't agree with, just to fight something that I strongly disagree with. And that's going to be on me to figure out for me if I want to do that or not.
Was there something that anyone said that stuck out to any of you?
Honestly, I really liked hearing your side of things because I feel like all three of us are very Bernie our best. And just so to be able to speak with somebody that feels strongly about the lesser of two evils, even though you are a Bernie supporter, it's interesting to get that side of the story of why you would be okay with voting for Hillary when you don't, she's not your first choice. I think that's interesting because it's not something that I think. I like to hear the other side. Yeah.
I would like one person just to give a final thought over the election or over this discussion, what was talked about.
If more people sat down and aired out their differences and the problems, I feel like there'd be less war and less struggle. If people just spoke to each other and didn't just go off of the media or their own personal thoughts about things without getting other people's opinions. And this discussion in this group is a good way because we all don't agree on everything, but it is a good path forward. It's a good path to revolution. It's a good path to change if people just get together and speak.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Mod Journal with this week's discussion over the election and racism and feminism and radical optimism. I hope that you enjoyed it. And what are your thoughts on this? If you have thoughts or if you have questions for either panelist, please comment on our Facebook webpage. You can comment in the reply box or on our wall. Or if you're watching on YouTube, comment below, subscribe to the channel, like and share, and then also on Facebook, subscribe, like and share. So thank you so much for watching this week's webisode, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.